Thanks for tuning in. My name is Les Ross. I am a town planner. I am working for a developer and we're putting together a housing development scheme for a site in Derrylin in County Fermanagh. During this video, I'm going to tell you about a housing development proposal. I'm going to tell you about the site analysis work we've done. I'm going to tell you about the concepts that underpin a design, and then I'm going to show you the design itself. The purpose of the video is to inform you and, if possible, and if you'd like to get some feedback from you. A really important part of the community consultation exercise is to get that feedback, and then for that feedback we get from you to form part of the design process. So that if there are ideas that you have, if there are comments that you'd like to make, we would like to hear those. Some of that could be very, very important to how we put our design together in the final analysis. At the very end of this video, I'll be showing you our draft final layout for the site, but it's really important to realise that that is not the final design. It's not the final design until such a time as we get the feedback from the local community and we analyse that and put together the final package of drawings with giving all of those comments consideration. So what we really want is feedback from you. We've already advertised in the local press earlier on this year, 2020. We have written to local households and we've written to local representatives to tell people about the plans. On foot of that, we've actually got comments and feedback from people already, which has been really helpful. But we'd like to get some more, and hopefully this video is a way of stimulating some more feedback. We've sent out questionnaires. Some people have responded already. I guess we'd like more feedback, and anyone who wants a questionnaire, we'll be very, very happy to send you out a copy and to get you to fill that in, please. We especially want to hear from people who live in and around the site, and anyone else actually who's an interest in what's happening in the village in Derrylin. Normally we hold an event in the village. We invite everybody along and we talk you through plans and designs. But of course it's 2020. The current lockdown restrictions mean that we can't do what we normally do and hold one of those events. So this video is an attempt to do the same thing online and to get feedback from you in a different sort of way. I hope it works. At the end of the video, I'll tell you more about how to get in touch. Okay, that's the introduction over. Let's look at the site itself. So, to begin, I'll show you the location of the site in this map. We've roughly outlined the site in red. It's off Main Street Derrylin, in behind the former primary school site. You can see it on outlined red here on this plan. The site is beside the Centra shop, and it's opposite the Spar. It's at the northern end of the village. This next image shows the site a little bit closer up. Again, there you can see the old primary school site just up to the north. So the site has two distinct parts. There's that road frontage along Main Street, which is occupied by 4 houses, which are numbers 39, 41, 43 and 45 Main Street. Now, on that plan I've shown you, there's another building, but actually that has been demolished in recent times, and those of you who know the village will know that that's a hard standing yard and it's used for storing silage bales at the moment, so there's black bales stored there at the moment. In behind that road frontage there's a large field, and the eastern part of that field is within our proposed development site. The site stretches the whole way from Main Street back to a small stream at the southern end of the field. The Fermanagh Area Plan provides the planning policy context, and it shows a development limit, a line around Derrylin, and the Area Plan allows development schemes within those defined settlement limits. The proposed housing development site that we're talking about, this area outlined red, it is all within the development limits of Derrylin, and within that area it is acceptable in principle to create new development. So some people know that there was a planning application approved on this site back in 2016, and that was for 69 units, mainly comprising townhouses and apartments. And I've just shown this on the screen here. You can see the old layout. It's a relatively dense form of development with a whole lot of blocks of development there, and quite a sort of complicated roads, geometry, lots of twists and turns and so on. Yeah, we've had a look at that layout. We think we can improve it substantially. Our new proposal aims to revise it and to provide a looser form of development, which is more concentrated on the type of family homes that are most in demand in this part of the rural Fermanagh. The market research that has been done by the developer suggests that really what people are looking for in this area is an affordable type of family home. So what we're aiming to do is create quite a few semi-detached houses, a few detached houses on the site to appeal to local families and to the local market, but also to make sure that it's within the affordability range for local people. So the next image I'm showing you here is an aerial image of the site, and the site here is outlined red as well. What you can see down in the bottom right hand corner, that's where the Spar shop is. On the bottom left hand corner, that's the Centra. Just trying to orientate you here where the site is, and then you can see the existing houses in the foreground and basically onto the frontage of Main Street Derrylin, and you can see over to the right hand side the old primary school site, which is now used as business premises, and the big parcel of the field to the rear, which is all within the site outlined red. Another image here now showing the site from the other side, so this is taken above the site itself, and you're looking up to the Spar shop now on the roadside there on the left hand side of the picture, the Centra over on the right hand side, and you can see the church and the graveyard and the new primary school up there on the opposite side of the road, and you can look, probably you can see Upper Lochern there way in the far distance, the road stretching out towards that. The entirety of our site is within the settlement limit, so the concept of providing a housing development already established by the existing permissions, but also underpinned by the fact that the area plan shows the site inside the settlement limit. The next image I'm showing here is our site survey, and this is just picking up the topography of the site, the land levels in the site, and it's a little bit difficult to read, but what it's showing you is that the site is fairly level. The lands over to the west, beyond the site limit, over in the left hand side of this image, are rising slightly, but overall the site's quite level. This next drawing illustrates the key components of the site. So along Main Street there's a strong residential frontage, and those houses are close to the roadside and they're fairly dominant in that streetscape. The former primary school buildings and Centra store, they limit the views or limit the opportunity for any views back into the field and behind. The removal of that old building at number 47, that helps to provide partial view in, but really that's quite limited until you get up to the gate that's there. The landform also rises slightly from the Main Street roadside towards the field, and that limits the views in, because then, you know, when you get to that hedgerow, when you look back into the field, generally the levels are, although the field is quite flat, the levels are falling gradually towards the lowest part of the land along the stream corridor in the very far south of the site. Within the field, that land feels, it appears fairly flat. There's a standard hedge, of agricultural hedge along the eastern boundary, but in fact there's nothing to demarcate the western line of the settlement limit in the site boundary. It's just a line drawn down the field for some reason in the area plan, and that's the line that we have to work to. When you're standing in that central part of the field, there are pleasant long range views to the uplands and the hills to the far southwest, and that's an important asset for the site. And whenever you're in the very far southern part of the site along the stream corridor, it's really quite unspoilt and pretty in there, and In our opinion, that's one of the most obvious site assets, and that's something that we'll be trying to incorporate into the design to really create a pleasant residential environment down in that part of the site and really open that up for public use and enjoyment. We've undertaken quite a number of assessments, including basic things like a topographical survey and the visits to the site and area, but we've also undertaken a number of specialist assessments by the likes of an ecologist, a traffic engineer and a drainage engineer. What we found is there's very little of special interest in the field itself because it's a standard agricultural field, pasture that's cut for silage and grazed, so there's nothing really special about the land, or there's nothing worth protecting there of a special interest. The houses and the gardens up along the frontage up on Main Street, they're typical residential properties and gardens. Again, nothing outstanding or remarkable about those properties. Okay, the next image shows a basic concept for the site, and I'll try and explain what all these little arrows and dots and circles mean. The site itself is around 8 acres, which is a fairly big site, and a site of that scale needs a high quality access geometry. In other words, it needs a good road entrance. What we're proposing and what we need to do is provide a right hand turn island in the main street, and that ensures high quality standards of safety, road safety, and the continued free flow of traffic along Main Street. So traffic that wants to turn into the site has a pocket, an island within the centre of the road to make that manoeuvre. Creating that right hand turn lane in the middle of the road requires some road widening. We also need to create visibility displays in both directions for the existing traffic exiting the site. And all of these works means that the access point needs to be in a fairly central location in that frontage. So you can see the red arrow there, it's fairly central in that area. We can't push it towards a primary school or towards the Centra store because we need to create those visibility displays and do that bit of road widening. All of this means the existing houses on the street frontage, which are quite close to the edge of the road, will need to be demolished, and new houses will be built here in conformity with the new access layout. It's really important to create good road frontage along the main street, and that will help strengthen the sense of enclosure and make sure that urban form doesn't become more fragmented. In other words, a quality frontage on Main Street will help the look of the village and will showcase the development itself. Our basic idea, and I think I've tried to show this with these brown circles on this image, is to create pockets of development which are off a central boulevard. And that boulevard, which is indicated maybe by the red dots for the access route. Our basic idea was to create pockets of development off a central boulevard, and we want the main spine of the site to appear green, and that's these red dots represent the main spine of the main access route, and the green blobs really is this boulevard of trees and this green area along the centre of the site. Each spur off that would be easily identifiable and a little bit different. To us, it seems important to create a swathe of open space along the stream corridor, and that really the site sort of terminates with that you arrive at this corridor along there, and that's, as I said before, it's quite pleasant along there, and we want to try and incorporate all of that into the site rather than turn our back to it. So the planting down there would be retained and augmented, more planting put in. Because that bit of space is back of the site, we want to create a substantial open space somewhere else so that it's not just the people who live at the back of the site who get that sense of openness and so on. So our concept is that we put quite a substantial area of green space out at the front, and that's that central big circle of green. That's just showing that we want to put something green in there. We think that that'll create a sense of openness on arrival to the body of the site, and it'll be a useful, pleasant area for the residents. The western boundary of the site, which is completely undefined at this moment, we think that needs substantial new planting to create a strong edge to the settlement limit here. And maybe this diagram that you're looking at makes a little bit more sense now. The only thing I didn't describe were the yellow arrows up at the street frontage, and that's just an indication we need to provide that good sense of street frontage along there. This next image starts to look a little bit more like you might expect a housing development layout to look like on a plan. It shows the next stage of our design process. You can see on the western side, this sort of idea of a very strong sense of enclosure there. So starting from the front of the site, I'm showing here, quite a strong frontage with the arrows that are pointing to the main street and to the new road coming in, and that just indicates that the orientation of these buildings should be to the main street, but also onto that entrance point, so that you have a good sense of enclosure and arrival at the site at the front. Then you come down, if you just follow the dots from the road frontage, you come down in and there's really houses looking towards the site. Now, each of these blocks, it doesn't represent an individual house, so I'm just showing as the general sweep of development form through the site. This is very diagrammatic at this stage. These don't represent houses, they just represent a development form. So this idea of coming through the site and arriving at this sort of quite a large green area, which is completely overlooked by housing. Now, you would probably have some sort of spur into the east and to the west to give you some access in there. And then that central spine, as I've described it earlier, goes right through the site down to the back in this corridor of green space along the side. And you can see that I'm trying to give that spine a good sense of being overlooked by the houses on both sides, but also a little bit more in-depth sort of form, an in-depth form. And that's basically cul-de-sacs of housing that are sort of looking into the road, providing that. And that means cul-de-sacs of housing. So that plan's still really diagrammatic, but it gives you an indication of this is how we got to this final layout. This is the final drawing I'm going to show you, and it's our draft layout for the site. Starting at the frontage on the Main Street, you get 2 blocks flanking that entrance. Those are blocks of apartments, and each unit has 5 apartments. Moving back into the site, you've got detached and semi-detached houses flanking the road. You arrive at quite a big area of open space there, and that really provides a sense of openness in that heart area of the site. And it's completely surrounded by houses, overlooked by them, and the residents of all those houses will have that pleasant outlook from their homes. The spine road is really obvious on this drawing. It terminates at the open space along the stream corridor at the back, and you also have this cul-de-sac in the middle of the site. And everything's all linked together with footpaths, and the site is very permeable in those terms. So we've got this boulevard down the centre, good sense of green. The existing boundaries are retained, and there's more planting put in, especially along that western boundary and in the heart of the site at the area of open space. So hopefully this final drawing, you can see what underpins that in the drawings before, where you've got concepts that are building up towards this. And you'll see throughout this whole site there are semi-detached and some detached houses, and that's the dominant type of development on this site. And that's all geared towards providing family homes, which we know there's a demand for in the village. Okay, our contact details are on screen now. First of all, our telephone number. Give us a call to discuss anything about the site, to ask any questions, and to provide your comments. Alternatively, this is our address. You can drop us a letter, or here is our email address. Send us through an email. Be assured that we will review all of the comments that come through, and everything will be considered as we make those final design changes. I just need you to make sure to get those comments through to us or contact us before the 12th of November, please, because we'll be making the application shortly after that date. It just remains for me to say thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for listening and watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and hopefully we'll hear from you. Thank you.